So in today's War Thunder video, once again, we have all of these 7-7 vehicles within War Thunder to view them and see what their weak spots are to see how to defeat them from a 6-7 vehicle. Now you might be asking, why am I in a Panther F, which is clearly not a 6-7 vehicle? It's because I want to talk about a little bit of a fact of this vehicle right here, the T-265, and also all of the other Pershings, which is a weak spot that I missed, but I kind of missed it because I rarely ever go for it just because of the inconsistency of damage. Now, if you have something like the Tiger H1, which has the nuke round, which overpressure, sure, you can go for this lower plate spot every single time. But the problem about it is that this spot for pretty much every other gun, which does not have an overpressuring effect, can be a little bit hit or miss. So we can shoot in this position, and if you want to see the 6-7 video to see all the weak spots, it'll be at the top right. You can click it right now. But if you want to see what happens with a spot, is that you'll have this happen to you. Or you have it to where it only kills like the MG gunner, which can be a bad thing. You can also do it on the right side. Sometimes it will go all the way through and actually like hit the ammo or like spall a little bit more, but it is super inconsistent whenever it comes to the damage of it, which is why I don't recommend going for the spot pretty much ever. Like what I recommend doing, if you see something like a T-265, because the lower plate, like in the middle right here, is completely immune to pretty much all APHE whenever it comes to this like battle rating range. What I would do is to shoot out the gun. Every single time you see one of these things from the front, to shoot out the gun so they can't shoot back. And then you can go for that weak spot if that's the only one that you can hit. But for me at least, I like to just go for this one right here, because at least then I know it's going to like kill the like turret crew and do something to it. But the big portion of this video that I just want to like say is that you definitely need to just get rid of the gun of a T-265, because once you get rid of the gun, you can get on the side of it. You can start going for these like lower plate spots and maybe not bend and maybe do less damage. The ballpark is in your favor whenever it comes to attacking a vehicle like this, which means that you can chance like the lower plate not destroying or like not doing enough damage. So it still stands. I still go for the gun, but for me at least, I just like the turret weak spot because I know I can always see it even if they're hull down. So that's personally what I do, and that's the reason why I don't go for the spot, even though it does exist. That's the reason why. So hopefully you guys understand that, and let's get on to the video and look at all of the other tanks at 7-7. So once again, with this video, the rules from the 6-7 video are going to stay. So we're going to be 100 meters away from the targets just to give a more realistic combat range whenever it comes to shooting them. We're also going to be using some of the nation specific tanks. So for example, for America and probably the rest of everybody else except for Germany, we'll probably use the Tiger II, because well, it's a very common gun that you're going to be using. And also I assume a lot of you probably just use the Long 88 because of its, you know, it's probably one of the most common vehicles within the game. So for America, we'll use the Tiger. For Germany, we'll probably go to something like the Pershing, maybe the Super Pershing, just depending on what I want to kind of show. Germany, we'll probably do again for Russia, and then the rest of them will probably just be the Tiger II. So that's the plan, with at least within this video. But let's get on to the first vehicle, which is one that I'm going to show you that it's going to make you pretty much never fear T-32 again. And it doesn't matter which variant you have, because you have two variants. This one's the 7.3. The only differences between the T-32s is that you see the hull is different and the lower plate's different. So this one has an MG port that you can technically shoot for, which means it's way easier to kill. This one technically doesn't. But there's a shot on the T-32s on the upper turret, which means that you never have to fear these things again. And it's this spot right there. I don't know how many times I have shot T-32s there, and they just get like, wow, you just like completely negated my armor. And it's like, yeah. Same thing happens with the T-32A1. You don't even have to worry about like any weak spot. Like this one's pretty much immune on the upper hull, but that spot still remains the same. You just shoot the upper turret and it just destroys it. It's such a low like weak spot, but you do have the same weak spots kinda like the T-265 and Pershings, where you can technically like try to go for like this area, but it's very, very hit or miss. I don't personally go for it. If I ever see a T-32, I either gun them out, so just shoot the gun out and then just shoot like for this little area right there, and it's just a nuke every single time, no, depending on what vehicle that you use. But yeah, T-32s overall, I mean, like the 7.3 one, you can still go for the lower plate like right in there, and then also you can go for the MG port. But this one is more of an advanced one, which most of the time, if you see it, just gun it out, and then you can get you an easy shot up into that area. Sometimes it does take a little bit to actually get that area like pinned down, so definitely would recommend just taking out their gun. So the next vehicle we have here is the M48, and the M48 is one of those vehicles that is kind of a trolly one, because people think it's an M60, and the problem with the M48 is that while you do have a cupola on top, this cupola does not fuse APHE rounds because it's so small. It's not the same as these M60 cupola, of where the M60 cupola is bigger, so it has more room to actually fuse APHE. Most likely shooting at this area, you will not be able to kill the M48s. So unless you have something like an autocannon with APHE, like a Falcon or something, I would never personally go for this upper like cupola. Like, just never go for it on M48. If you're in a Tiger, the way that you want to take out M48s is you want to shoot for this lower plate right there, shoot straight towards the middle. It will pin pretty much every single time. And if they're hold down and you cannot see them or see that like lower plate, just go for the side of the turret, take the little canvas right there, and then shoot right there. And then it will be able to destroy M48s. Like, they're not that hard to actually take out once you learn where to shoot them, but basically just shoot like right in those areas and you'll be able to take them out every time. All right, so for the T-54A1, which is a premium for the American tech tree, just imagine that you're still facing a M48. There's really not a huge difference between these vehicles, other than that you can still go for the cupola shot. So you do a little bit more damage with that shot, but just imagine that you're still facing an M48. There's no real reason to actually like make it more complicated than it is. The lower plate, it's still a really good shot to go for. And then also you take the turret and you shoot either side of the turret right here. So for example, right there, you'll build a pennant. So just imagine the M48, like, it's not that big of an issue whenever it comes to seeing these two vehicles different. The only thing is that this one actually has the cupola that you can technically shoot for. So that's really the only differences between these two. All right, so now we're on the M103, and the M103 is the first vehicle within War Thunder that I think people just didn't play a ton of. So people didn't really know where to actually shoot M103s, and why some people like to coin this vehicle starting the M103 syndrome, which means that if a vehicle is not played enough or people just don't play them out enough, you don't get enough experience on how to take them out. So this vehicle, whenever people would see it, especially in something like a Tiger H1 or a Tiger 2H, I mean, you would have scenarios of where they just don't know where to take it out. So like the first thing is people think that's like an M48 of where you can just shoot the lower hole and actually do anything, which you technically can't. And it's a vehicle that's been buffed over the years, especially whenever it comes to like Tigers. Volumetric shells actually increase this thing's survivability a ton. So whenever you see an M103, there's really only 2 or 3 shots you can technically take. You can shoot out the gun, which gives you more ability to shoot other things, but you do have the lower hole, which I'm not really sure if you can see it from here, but there's like this little spot, if you can see where my little crosshair is at right now. If you shoot right in here, you can pin. It's really hit or miss thing to actually get into the spot to actually pin an M103, but majority of the other spots within the tank itself is pretty much a no-go zone. Like it's pretty much immune from a Tiger 2. Like, you do have this spot right here, which is the turret ring. The problem around it is that volumetric shells are a thing now, and that turret ring is so small to actually try to like get a shell into. So you gotta be pretty much pixel perfect on this vehicle. Other than that, from a Tiger 2's point of view, like, there's really nothing else you can really do. I mean, the lower plate is pretty much immune, so I would just never go for there. I would try to disable M103s as much as you can. Wait until they shot a teammate or something, or shot at a teammate if you're closer to them, and then just disable them. And that's probably the easiest way to take out M103s. They are a very tough target to take out, especially because, well, they're probably designed to be immune from a long 88. So M103s, they're pretty hard to take out. You can go for there if you have like absolutely nothing else you can actually pin on them, if they're like hold down or something. But yeah, overall, disable them. Try to get on the side of them. Maybe if you can disable them and then like shoot for this area, you can kill them every time. But other than that, M103 is a very hard target to take out, especially from a Tiger 2's point of view. So now we're on to the M163, and M163 overall, it's a very easy like vehicle to kill. It's just the M113 chassis, right? But the thing about M163s is that they love to shoot out your gun and shoot out your tracks. But as long as you have a MG, it doesn't matter what caliber, you can just aim right here and pretty much destroy the guy without even shooting him. So if you ever get your gun taken out by these guys, aim for this area right there where it looks like a little magazine. Okay. But it looks like a little magazine, and you can see it, and if you MG it enough, you'll be able to destroy the M163s without even shooting them, which for me at least is a huge thing to know about these vehicles, because they definitely do try to like take out your gun and everything. So if you do see these guys, you can just shoot for that position every single time. The next two vehicles, they're kind of just meme vehicles, like the T114 and the XM800T. Like armor wise, they're basically nothing. You shoot them like right there, it destroys it. XM800T, once again, like unless an XM800T can get like right there behind you and shoot into your turret ring, they're not pinning you. So it's not that huge of an issue whenever it comes to these vehicles. But that's it for America. Now let's get on to Germany with something like the Pershing. All right, so you're in a T26E5 and you basically found yourself facing an E100 or a mouse. What do you do from the front? Pretty much there's nothing that you can do whenever it comes to your APHE shell, which means, and I very much hope that you have APCR researched and you also have some with you. The 90mm very much benefits from having APCR, and if you have it, at least you can pin the cheeks of an E100 or the mouse. So if you ever see one of these guys from the front, it's definitely for sure that you need to load your APCR and you need to shoot for the sides of the cheeks. So do not shoot anywhere below down here and do not shoot towards above. Take like this MG right here and just move over to the right a little bit and you will be able to pin this guy every single time. The same thing happens for the mouse. E100 and the mouse basically have the same exact weak spot for the turret because the turret is basically the same. Just be a little bit of a reminder of this. You're probably not going to get this many ammo racks because people are bringing like lower ammo in the mouse than the E100. So your whole point is just to snipe out some of the crew whenever it comes to the gunner, whenever it comes to loaders, and your whole goal is just whenever this dude gets another loader, gets another gunner, shoot it again in that same exact position. Now, there's one thing I do want to know about the E100 and the mouse. If you see them from the side, you can technically pin them with a regular round. So like APCR, you can still go through. I'd probably just highly recommend doing that. But if you have a vehicle like the E100 and you have like, maybe this one can do it, we might have to switch to like the T26E1. But if you take the actual side armor and you go right here at the tracks, you can maybe pin this guy right there if you shoot with your APHE. So that's one thing to know of why the E100 technically has a better weak spot to shoot for, is if you just take its armor, go down to the tracks right here and then shoot, you'll be able to pin pretty much every single time, even with an APHE. There's a little bit of a difference with the mouse. I'd probably say the mouse in general has better side armor, but you can still go through it if you do have a shot on it whenever it comes to War Thunder. So yeah, the mouses, while they are scary, it's definitely two vehicles that you need to know where to shoot. And with that being said, they're kind of way easier to take out once you do know how to destroy them. All right, so I forgot I accidentally put this vehicle in again, but it's just the M48. You shoot lower hull or you shoot in at the like turret right there, you'll be able to pin it every single time, and it's not a huge issue. But yeah, this is the M48. Germany does have one, which technically means that you'll see it as an American. So the last vehicle that we have for Germany, and it's their 7.7 vehicle, is the Martyr. The Martyr is a funny one because sometimes you can shoot like right there and the engine will completely eat every single round that you shoot into it. But I think the better shot to go for every single Martyr shot is up in here where you can actually hit their ammo. And I think you can even destroy it with like a 50 cal. So like Martyrs, if you see them up close, like I would say like you can go for this like right side right there and destroy the crew. But if you really just want to destroy it, if you have auto cannons, if you have just a 50 cal, you can just shoot right here and at some point it will just completely nuke the tank. So that's how at least I take away Martyrs. Like you can shoot out their like Milan too if you really feel like it. But whenever it comes to shooting their upper hull and their lower hull, just remember this like left side right here is completely blocked by an engine. So even though you might like shoot right there, your round would just be eaten. And then if you do get your round eaten, just remember you can use your 50 cal, go for this position right here and destroy them. So Martyrs aren't really that hard to take out, and hopefully you guys learned something from the German. All right, so now we're on to Russia once again, and most of the 7.7 vehicles we have covered before in the other vehicle where we went over all of the Russian heavies within their tech tree. But we do have the first vehicle here, which is the T-54. So the T-54 1947 is a vehicle that has a weaker turret, I do have to say, compared to the other T-54s, but the hull itself is stronger. So it does have an extra plate on the upper hull, which means it's kind of hard to take out whenever it comes to a lot of other vehicles. But for the Tiger's sake, no matter what T-54 that you face, you're not going to be able to pin this upper frontal plate. So I would just completely just don't even try to go for anything in the upper frontal plate. You're never going to pin them. Always just go for the turret. Like the turret right there is just an easier shot to take, and most of the time it's going to kill the tank. Like there's not that much of an issue with it. You can do either side of the turret, and the T-54 is very, very easy to take out whenever it comes to the early ones. The later ones, they're a little bit more circular, so it's harder to actually get a precise weak spot on it. but either one of those positions is just super easy to take out on the T-54 1947. The next vehicle we have here is the IS-4M, and the IS-4M from a Tiger II like H's point of view is pretty hard to take out. Like, you still have spots of just going for the gun, take out the gun, and then you pretty much like have full range of an IS-4M. But if you really need to take out an IS-4M, the easiest spot for me, at least with a Tiger II gun, the long 88, is the turret ring. If you can get into that position right there, it's so easy to take out that vehicle, and it's really easy to take them out whenever it comes to its turret ring. But you can, because of volumetric cells, get issues like that happen, so can be a little bit of an issue. So if you played War Thunder whenever the IS-6 released, you can probably remember how strong this vehicle used to be. But now at least, I would not recommend going for any other shot than this on the IS-6, which is taking these two like MG ports or the periscope things right there, and you just shoot like in the middle of it and destroy it. It's a very easy shot that you can make in a Tiger. I don't recommend going for anything else other than that because it's pretty much an insta kill if you can get it go through there. But I mean, if you really need to, you can disable it through the gun and then try to get that position or get on the side of it. But every other shot that you can make on this thing, it really doesn't make any much sense to go after, since like, yeah, that's like pretty much a very consistent shot and a one shot almost every single time. Now the T-10A, which is a vehicle that is also a premium for Russia, is a vehicle that is kind of a hit or miss thing whenever it comes to shooting it, because I would just recommend gunning it first, and then if you're in something like a Tiger, go for the turret ring. Just like on the IS-4M, I feel like the turret ring is the like best shot that you can possibly make on this thing, because you can maybe get it to shoot down into the hole itself, or if you get like a pixel perfect shot, you can actually just make the turret ring like it'll just go straight through it. And the reason I say disable it because of that right there, it's one of those things that's once again very much determinative of volumetric. Is your shell going to actually get through it? So that's what I would do, at least. Like this thing is very heavily armored on the front, but if you can get it to do that, that is one of the easiest ways to kill it. Remember, these are 7.7 vehicles. Like, they're pretty much designed to be immune from a 6.7 tank, but you can still go for the turret ring on the T-10A. And then finally for Russia, we had the ZSU-37-2. This thing's just a meme. Like, just shoot there, shoot a driver's hatch, you know, destroy it pretty much every time. It can be 50 cal. I think you can even HE this thing. Like, if you really needed to, you could probably HE the radar on top. And let's try it right quick. I've honestly never shot one with HE. Yeah, you can just HE it. So it's super easy to destroy the ZSU-37-2. But now let's get on to Britain. All right, so for Britain, we have the Centurion X&X. Also, make sure this is a Swedish thing as well, because Sweden has a bunch of these Centurions. As you can see with the S-Tier V81, they have this vehicle in their tech tree. But we have the Centurion X&X, we have the Centurion Mark V, we also have the Conqueror, and then we have the Carnarvon, and then we have the Fox. So the thing about the vehicles within the Britain is that you kind of just need to remember where to shoot them. Pretty much every single one of these tanks, you can just lower plate, and as you can see, that thing goes kaboom, and it's very easy to destroy these vehicles within a lower plate. Every single one of these things, even like the Conqueror over here, can just be lower plated every single time. Now the question is what happens whenever these vehicles start to go hull down? For this vehicle, the Centurion X&X, and then also the S-Tier V81, both of these vehicles from a Tiger's point of view can just be upper frontal plated. Now, if you try to do that exact same shot on the Centurion Mark V or Centurion Mark X or any of the other Centurion vehicles, they have a upper plate which is more armored, which means that you will not just be able to do that. So whenever you see these vehicles, you can just go for their upper plate if they're Centurion X&X or just a Mark III Centurion or S-Tier V81. But if you need to shoot at the turret, the Centurion X&X has a weirdish turret. I would recommend just going for like right there. You'll be able to pin them every single time, and it should just basically nuke them. Most of these Centurions, while they do have a lot of benefits, like having APDS, they also have a stabilizer. They have a decent amount of mobility, just depending on how you use them. The thing about it is that their armor really isn't that much. I mean, same thing with the Centurion Mark V. You may not be able to pin its upper plate, but you can still go for shots like that and still pin it. So it's not really that huge of an issue. It's just that you really need to remember which S-Tier V that you're facing, or which Centurion that you're facing. Because if you remember that it's a Centurion X&X, or it's even like an S-Tier V81, this upper plate, for at least a Tiger, is one that you can go for. Now, as you can see, it did bounce with that one. But just remember that you can pin them if you go like more in the upper portion of the tank itself. So that's really all that you need to remember about these Centurions, is that there's some of them that you can upper frontal plate, And then there's some of them that you just can't, like the Centurion Mark 5. So that's basically all you need to know about them. So the next vehicle that we have here is the Conqueror Mark II, and you do have a different kind of variant of the Conqueror, which is the Super Conqueror, where it has a little bit more extra added armor to it, especially on the turret cheeks and as well as the upper hull. For this vehicle, at least for a Tiger, you do not want to shoot any of those areas. Most of the time, if you can see a Conqueror from the front, just go for the lower plate. Every single time this thing is just going to nuke it, it's going to be completely destroyed, and it's a very easy time to take them out. Now, if you have a Conqueror which is hull down, you can go for the cupola type thingy on the top, which means that you can shoot right there, and it should be able to pin the rest of the tank. Now, the thing about the Conqueror, and I feel like it's something that I really need to tell you guys, is that the turret ring is not a weak spot unless you have Heat FS or unless you have APDS. Because most vehicles you would think, well, the turret ring should be a weak spot. It should be like the weakest part of armor. But a funny fact about the Conqueror is that it technically has a better turret ring than the Abram. It's kind of funny actually think about it in that way. If I remember correctly, whenever I looked at the turret ring, it's like 340 millimeters of armor, like effectiveness on this turret ring. Compared to like the Abrams, which is like can be killed by T-30-45. So it's a shot that I would never go for. Like I would honestly just avoid the turret area in general, and I would just go for either lower plate or go for this shot right there. That's the two that I would go for on the Conqueror, which makes this thing really easy to take out. Just pretty much avoid the turret itself and also this upper plate right there, and then you should be fine. All right, so now we have the Carnarvon. Pretty much this thing is just a fatter Centurion Mark 3. Like you still have the same exact weak spot. Solar hull is probably the shot that I was always go for on any of the British tanks. And then you also have the turret itself, which if you pin towards like the left or right side, you'll be able to pin this guy pretty much every single time. Like it's not a huge tank that you have to it's a heavy tank, right? But it's not heavy enough to where like it can stop even like the long 88. The problem that I would say, and I kind of wanted to show right there, is that this tank does have a lot of like shots on it that can bounce. I believe it is one of those vehicles that you really just need to know where you're shooting at. Like right there, if you shoot right there, it can still go through but not do enough damage. So what I normally do is I shoot towards the left or right side, and then I try to get into those areas. The turret ring itself is probably a hit or miss thing, but if you can get right in those areas, you can do a decent amount of damage. Another thing to note about it is the left side is where the gunner's at, so make sure to hit that. But yeah, if you can see these guys and they don't have anything to do with them, just shoot the lower plate. If like easy shot every single time with the Carnarvon. But yeah, the Carnarvon's one of those vehicles I would say once again is just like the M103, where just people don't play this thing a ton, so you have a lot of issues with just knowing where to shoot this thing. But if you just treat it like a fatter Centurion Mark III, it's pretty easy to take out at the end of the day of things. And then finally for Britain, we have the Fox. And the reason I have the Fox sideways is because one thing that people kind of don't realize, and they added it within one of the other updates, is that you can use your MGs and you can just shoot the Fox's little wheels off. So you can steal his ride and he can't move anywhere. And it makes these things way easier to take out, because if you shoot their wheels off, then they can't move, or they can't really move that effectively. And that means that maybe you can get a better shot into them and you could be able to kill them. So that's one thing I do want to note about the Foxes, is that like shooting off their wheels, especially if they come around a corner and they're trying to like shoot you or something, you can definitely do it. Also, if you have like 50 cals, you can aim for like in this area right here where this round's about to go through, and you can actually pin the Fox with your 50 cals and maybe take out 2 of the crew, which is an easy way to take out these Foxes, especially if they're very quick and you just can't get your gun around to them. Alright, so we replenished our ammunition because we did run out of APHE, and now we're on to China, which is their only 7.7 vehicle, which is completely different. They do have like an M48 that we've like covered way down there, but the ZTS 63, it's just a box that can be 50 cal to death majority of the time, and then you can just shoot it. It's not really that huge of an issue to deal with. The only thing that you really need to remember is this thing has a laser rangefinder, and then also has an APFSDS, so if you're at range, this thing can take you out very, very effectively if it's spaded. So now what we're looking at is the M47-105 for Italy, and it's the same L7 105mm cannon that you'll find on vehicles like the Leopard 1, the M60s, all of the vehicles which have an L7 105. The thing about the M47 is that this is a battle rating of 7.7, and for the Tiger's sake at least, it's pretty much a low pin whenever it comes to shooting these things. Lower plate, you can pretty much pin anywhere on this lower plate. The turret itself can be a little bit trolly, but if you shoot towards the edges, like right in this area, you can pin them very reliably. The thing about the M47 is, and it's quite a huge thing, is this upper plate right here. While yes, sometimes you can automatically just pin them, sometimes you'll get bounces, and then sometimes it just does crazy stuff. So for me at least, whenever I'm viewing an M47, I just completely ignore this upper frontal plate. Yes, you can get random bounces that just go into it, but it's not a huge reliable place to go, especially since you just have other weak spots which are way better, like the lower plate down here, which has all the ammo at the bottom, or you have the turret, which both of the turret cheeks right here are super easy to pin. So that's for me at least where I go for the M47s. I just avoid this upper plate because it can be reliable sometimes, but it also can be very, very trolly. So I would just pretty much avoid it every single time that you face one of these things. So now we're on to France, and we covered this vehicle within the 6.7 lineup, except for this one is the AMX-13 at 90mm. And for AMX-13s, you can basically just pin them anywhere. The only thing that I would just recommend is always shoot towards like the right side of the tank, because whereas a shot right there, you do have the engine and the transmission, but if you shoot there, if you look at the pin thing, it just goes through the driver and then goes into the back of the turret. So for me at least, that's where I normally shoot. You can shoot up in the turret itself and do a ton of damage. So that's at least where I take out AMX-13s from. So now we have a lot of vehicles for France here that look very, very similar. So we got the Rain 40 ton, we have the AMX-50, we have the AMX M4, and we also have the Samoa SM. Each one of these vehicles, if you don't know exactly what the differences of them are, they look very, very similar. So that's why I'm putting all of them right here, is because even though they look very, very similar, they all have different weak spots and they all have different abilities. The one thing that I really want to put in your head, especially if you're a newer player to War Thunder, is that I would not worry about these tanks at all of what they are. Just know that each tank has its exact same weak spot, which is you just shoot the turret. Every single one of these vehicles, while yes, you can pin them in other ways, like the Rain 40 ton, you can just go through to the lower plate or even just go through this like angular portion right here. You can't do that on the Samoa SM. And especially if you don't know these tanks or you don't know which ones they are, you need to just go for a shot that is reliable on all of them, which is going to be this one right here. So every single one of these vehicles can do that. And while yes, you can still pin the upper hull of the AMX M4s, the AMX M50s, you can't do that on a Samoa. The Samoa has about the same amount of armor as this guy right here on the front of our Tiger II, which means we can't pin it. So if we accidentally forget that like we're shooting at a Samoa instead of we're thinking it's an AMX-50, it can be a huge issue because then you just don't kill the tank. So highly recommend this. Every single one of these French autoloaders at like 7.7, 8.0, 6.7, just go directly for the turret every single time, because no matter what tank you're in, you should be able to pin that turret. So that's what my recommendation is for each one of these autoloading 7.7, 8.0 vehicles for France. And now we're on to our final vehicles for the French tech tree. But once again, this is the AML 90. This is the vehicle that's in a lot of tech trees like Israel, France, and also the UK. But remember that you do have MGs, and especially with the new tire mechanics, you can just shoot these guys out now, which means that you can just pretty much make them run on one tire and make the shot way easier, especially if they're like super speeding and they're just trying to get around you and everything. But yeah, that's the AML 90, very easy vehicle to take out. Just remember the tire thing. And then finally we have here the AMX-50 Surbasse and the AMX-50 Surblende. The easiest way to tell the differences between both of these vehicles is the 20mm on top. The Surblende also has a weird cupola looking thing. And then also the pike nose is more pronounced on the Surblende than it is on the Surbasse. So both of these vehicles are very similar. They have a 120mm cannon. It's a very similar cannon to the M103 with its AP shell. The only thing that you really need to remember is that it's auto-loaded, so like they should have a very quick reload. But at least for weak spot wise, like the Surbasse, you're going to see a lot more than you will see the Surblende. The Surblende is a World War mode vehicle, and not many people actually have this vehicle. So if you ever see this one, just consider yourself lucky that you even seen one to begin with. But the Surbasse, you can go for the lower hull, just like all the M48s and all that sort of stuff. But for me at least, I would just avoid like the upper hull right here and either go for lower hull or go for this area right here. Same thing on these Surblende right here, except for I would just avoid this whole entire bottom portion of the tank, even the lower plate, because of how angled it is. Like, it's not that great of a like shot to go for. So what you do is you take both of these vehicles right here, you see where it looks like they have like a little bit more add-on armor, you just go above it and you shoot there. Because while yes, you might be able to pin like in these areas in certain positions, these upper areas right here are just like not as armored, so it's a lot easier to just destroy these vehicles from those positions. But yeah, the Surblende over here, you'll probably play War Thunder and probably never see one. Like, I bet majority of people's never seen one, but they're still very easy to take out both of these vehicles if you just shoot in these positions. Just remember, Surblende, The hull itself is pretty stronger, or like a lot stronger than the Cerbus is, because you can't go for a lower plate shot like that one. But yeah, that ends our 7.7 video whenever it comes to looking at all of the 7.7 vehicles with War Thunder. Hope you guys did enjoy this sort of video, as once again, this takes a lot of time to make. So if you did enjoy this, make sure to like and sub the channel. It is very much appreciated, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys in the next